Hello, hobby friends, and happy Friday to everyone. My name is David Baez, and we are a part of the Hobby Networking Group. Thanks for joining in on this Friday night. We are going to have some fun today with a live Q&A session, so thanks for joining in. This is a little bit different from what we've done before, so I'm really excited about doing this. And before I introduce my guest, just some quick house cleaning here. Just as always, just to get it out of the way now. Please like and subscribe. You see a hobby networking group in YouTube. That'll be, I'm forever grateful for that. It only helps grow the network and get the word out there. Also, Facebook group where I just put updates really on what's going on. So greatly appreciated on that front. And yeah, that's kind of it. We're going to get into the live Q&A now, and I'm going to introduce our guest. Our guest is none other than Mark Fahrenbacher. Mark, welcome to the show, buddy. How are you?
I'm great, David. How about yourself, bro?
I'm doing real well, thanks. And let me tell you this. I was really looking forward to this because I saw some of the feedback we were getting, and I'll get into that in a minute. But there's a lot of curiosity out there from new and old collectors alike, and I'm really hoping we touch on some of those questions here tonight with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of thought it was a good fit for us to maybe do some discussions. And I was really glad that I had actually tuned into your show prior to kind of talking to you about this. But I definitely think we have a lot of different topics that pretty much I cover. It seems like a repeat rewind every day, being a group admin of a very fast growing vintage hobby page that seems to find a lot of new collectors pretty much every week.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get started, we do have some questions that came through already, but I wanted to let whoever's watching this evening know that we're taking questions literally live. So if you have any questions regarding any topic, don't be shy. And I'm sure I don't want to put words in Mark's mouth, but I'm sure he agrees with me. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Bring them. That's how you learn. So ask us. This is the time to ask anything you want. We're here to help. Mark's definitely his area of expertise. I'll let him chime in on it. Anything I feel like I may have something to chime in on, I'll be more than happy to share as well. But any comments you guys throw in live, I'm going to share it on the screen with everyone here. Everything from a hello to the questions, I'll make sure to put them on here, guys. So, yeah, I as I was alluding to before, Mark, some great feedback from your group, man. I got to give your group some props. I love it. Everybody started throwing comments in, and we do have some questions. So I just wanted to commend you for the fantastic group you have. And if you want to take a second and talk about your group before we get rolling here, that'd be great.
Yeah. I had been selling a lot of different duplicates that I had, and I got into, I guess you could say fire selling myself. And for about 2 years, I did it, and it had grown so much that I started the group about a year ago. Actually, we had our 1 year anniversary. Oh, look, let me have one too.
Hey, salute! It's Friday, man. We earned it.
Dude, I got a second one coming.
There you go.
But we hit our 1 year anniversary a few days ago, and we hit 10,000 members. And for whatever reason, this page seems to kind of get all those people that find their cards and they've been either stored for 20, 30 years, or sometimes they inherit it and all of a sudden they start selling it and want to start collecting all of a sudden. It's so funny. And I've started to pull this phenomena on my page, since we started it, and had all these people, you could just tell, David, every day they'd find the page and say, hey, how much is this worth? That was pretty much the number one thing every single day, that it seemed like we answered that question 4 or 5 times with posts, right? The question post. And it became my thought, like, well, maybe we need to start talking about a lot of this basic knowledge, and you'll even find that some people really should have even better knowledge than what they have now for the amount of years, but maybe they haven't collected raw, right? But they've been looking at slabs, and they need more education on how to tell counterfeits. So, there's a lot of good information, but, really what I wanted to do is have a fun group that everybody felt safe, and at the end of the day, loves cards.
Yeah. Yeah, and I honestly think you've achieved that, buddy. I really commend you for the work that you, the admins, and the mods on your site. I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of them offline as well, and definitely commend you guys. You're doing a great job, and what can be a tough hobby at times, for all the topics that we're going to be talking about perhaps tonight and in future episodes, and some of the stuff we did pre-recorded, the detecting fakes and all, the shipping, and there's just so many elements to it. And I love the job that you guys are doing. So thumbs up, major thumbs up on that.
Thanks.
So why don't we do this? We'll again, just a quick reminder to everybody that's on. You can throw your comments, whether you're watching this on Facebook or on YouTube. Your comments will show up on my screen. I'll be happy to pop it up here. Mark or myself will be happy to answer those questions. Or just show your comments if again, it's Friday. This we're having fun, and as we showed before, we're having our drinks. So this is just chime in however you like. So let's start off. I'd like to kind of go in order here from the comments that were coming in from a few days ago. So one of the first comments we received here was just and this is kind of a $1 million question a lot of people have had of late. Brandon Renner from your group asked, do you think any of these new grading companies will stand the test of time? It's a great question. It's a loaded one, but I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Wow, I really think that we have a very unique time period in the hobby. It almost reminds me when in the very beginning you had all these new grading companies, and we didn't really understand this a long time ago when we first started seeing this phenomena with, hey, you need this grading company to tell you what the grade is, right? And if it's a real card or not, right? And all these different things that we depend on protection now with these grading companies. So, in some ways, you got to wonder how many of those can make it if so many before them already failed, right? And we see these failed slab companies, and you wonder, why did they fail, right? So I would think that you're going to see a good chunk of them not make it, but there could be one that kind of separates from the pack of the newer group that could take the lead, kind of like what SGC kind of did in the recent couple years, where they've started to kind of hone in on this vintage and modern hobby. But I don't really delve too much in modern. I don't like it, but I like that vintage hobby. And PSA had really a lot of control on it, but I think that they've lost a grip on some of this. And a lot of people have negative experiences of late, including myself. I had a big sub and I was not happy with it, really. You spend $1,000 and you get that sub back after almost 10 months, and you just
we've all been there, my friend. We've all been there.
So I guess we go back to like, it hurts, right? It's painful.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
Everybody has said they're grading a lot harder at PSA, and I would say I would say SGC is grading pretty hard actually as well. From my experiences with recent subs that I've just opened up boxes on. So it does make you feel like that, doesn't it? Huh?
It really does. I'm sorry, a little loose trigger finger there, but no, absolutely. It to me, it's been a major change in my opinion, and I think a lot of other folks probably feel the same way, Mark. Where you kind of send in a card, and look, we've been around the hobby long enough. You kind of look it over, like this is 8-9 territory. Comes back a 7 or 6, and you're like, what did I miss? So you kind of look at it again and you're like, what happened here? Right. So I agree. They're getting tough. They really are.
Yeah. One of the members did a sub to PSA, and he had, I guess, 20, and they all came back PSA 4. Every one of them.
Whoa.
So it's pretty interesting to see, everyone has an opinion, right? But the new companies are bringing something unique to it. Sometimes people want to color coordinate their slab to their card, team colors and all these different things. So it's pretty interesting to see all the different new concepts adding. Hey, you don't need it to just be a dull looking label, but I really don't know what's going to happen, David. You have to think that set builders are going to want the same slabs for their set. And PSA has had a monopoly on this. And I think most of the PSA vintage world, hobby world, you look at any of the big sets, any of the sets I've built, they usually have most of the slabs already. So,
Mm.
if you think set builder, it's really hard to deviate from that PSA control. But hey, look, maybe more of us will just say, hey, I don't care if I have mixed slabs anymore. It's, all I care about is the card and the slab, right? And
Yeah.
that's really hard to overcome because you like them to stack nice. You want all your stars to be, you want them all to look like they match, right?
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, a lot of us hobbyists, right? We have that
Right,
we
right.
have that OCD, right? We want it all
It's an
neat and
OCD.
organized. Yeah,
We're
but
all OCD and
you
you collect.
yeah, exactly. You bring up some good points because I think, look, I mean, PSA obviously, they are who they are, and they're obviously the lion's share, if you will, right? And when Brandon asked this question about these new grading companies, I think a lot of it's predicated on the fact that they just kind of, there's always been a couple of attempts here and there, dribs and drabs, but it feels like the last year or so, it's just been like this swarm. And I get it. A lot of it has to do with the fact that PSA basically just shut your doors down. And then the number two and number three kind of did the same thing. They just shut the bulk subs down, and they shut, all you can do is spend crazy, like, expedited pricing only, and who's going to do that on a potential PSA 6 Tony Gwynn rookie or something like that, that only might, net 25, but you're not going to spend $100 on that. But yeah, you'll do a 52 mantle. 100, it's $100 when you have a 52 mantle, but you're really kind of putting your, the hobby in this corner. So I get the feeling that some of these guys came out and said, hey, for the set builders, for the ones that just like their cards, encapsulated, more sentimental value than anything else, let's put this service out there. The problem here is this, and I'll stop here on this, is and this falls into a lot of topics on Open, which is what I'm really into. It's the credibility of the authenticator. I think the credibility of authenticator is key, right? So not kind of like not having that long history and not understanding the history of your authenticators is putting, if you're a new authenticator out there, I'm just warning you now. I think a lot of people are thinking like me. You're not going to send it there, not because your slabs don't look great, not because your label doesn't look great. It's probably because we don't understand your history. And if it's just Joe Schmo looking at it and putting it in a slab, I'm not sure if I'm too comfortable, putting my cards there. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, am I?
So I'm going to counterpoint you. You're an experienced collector, David, right? I know your history. You've collected a lot of big things. Now you're kind of in a niche market now. You love that unopened market. And it's definitely changed in many, many ways. Would you not agree?
It has. It certainly has. Yeah.
So I think there's just a lot of unknowns. Maybe we can't answer this question today. But one thing
It's
that
a
I
whole
really,
episode, right?
it's an episode in itself. And I tell you
Yeah.
what, we have a lot of angry people out there at the grading companies right now. If I've ever seen anger in the hobby, it's at the I truly think at those bigger entities that, in a way, they've kind of put that stranglehold on us, being able to finish our sets. I had some PSA sets that I've been building. It's like now I'm thinking, how am I going to finish these
Oh
sets?
yeah.
Now I got to go on eBay and I have to pay sales tax and I have to really, pay extra shipping,
Yeah.
for each slab now I want,
Yeah.
right? Because now it
Yeah.
gets expensive.
Yeah, but sometimes it's not even, Mark, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes it's not even about the money. Sometimes it's that thrill of getting the card raw, you submitting it yourself and saying, "Hey, I submitted. This is my baby. I submitted this. I got it back."
I
There's
think
a
you're
lot of
right.
factors. Yeah, no, but I think you're spot on what you're saying. I think we're all patiently awaiting to understand the long-term strategy of of the behemoth in the industry, which is PSA. Are they just going to completely get away from these lesser value cards and just keep the pricing structure where it is? And does that open the door for the other company? Who knows, right? I can tell you, I agree with everything you said before. We're kind of getting restless right now.
Yeah, yeah, and who says that you need to slab your cards? That's the whole thing. I really believe that we believe we have to slab our cards, and this belief, if you're a new collector, I'm going to tell you right now, start with a raw collection, and then maybe in about a year or two, the chaos will settle, and we'll have a better bearing on who is going to make it.
Right.
Like Brandon wants to know, okay, what's going to happen? I think we'll know a lot more in 12 months. I really do. So until then, hold some cards back that, you know what, you're going to keep them in your PC. It's not going to kill you to wait a year to see what happens, right? And then let's see who's already out the business. There's going to be probably 3 or 4 of them that aren't going to make it. And now we're going to see a dribble and a drab. In about 20 years, we'll see their slab for sale. And who was that? Oh, that was 2021. They were here for about 6 months. And really, like you said, and it's
give me a thumbs up on that.
yeah, it's reputation. So if I'm a new collector, I would for sure just collect raw, unless you're buying it already in the slab. I just, unless you really say, hey, I love the way SGC slabs look, great.
Yeah.
Go for it. I think that they're a good deal based off of everything else right now. I mean, I tried to get Beckett to slab some things. They want a fortune too, because they're good in the autograph rookie market, which I kind of like that market. And I'm like, man, I can't spend $100 a slab. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. It's just not.
No, it's all fair points, buddy. I think you hit the nail on the head on that one last comment there. We're gonna wait and see a little bit longer, and let's see what happens. And just like any other asset class or any type of business that's out there, sometimes a lot of folks come out with a great idea, but it's those that tweak their ideas and evolve their ideas based on feedback, and those are the ones that stand the test of time, right? So it's going to be interesting to see after 12 months or so, the dust settles, like who's going to still be there, and maybe then I'll give them a shot. Yeah. So
well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Interesting to see if SGC continues this ability to fulfill the orders quickly that they've been doing, plus still have enough rep in the business. That's going to at some point put some pressure, I think, on PSA.
Agreed. Yeah, so let's move on here. We got a couple other questions here. Again, just a reminder for whoever's watching, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, doesn't matter. If you click on the comments from the live feed, your questions, your comments will appear here, and I'll make sure to post them, guys. So again, it has to be from the live feed. If you're doing it on the page itself, it may not be seen. So if you click on the feed, you can throw your comment in. On Hobby Network group, that on the Facebook group, that's one place that will come up automatically, or on YouTube as well. And Mark and myself will happily get to the question, or go ahead and obviously post your comments as well. So there you go, John. Hey, John, how are you doing, buddy? Thanks for chiming in and for tuning in. I appreciate it. What's up, buddy? So I'll go on to the next question here from the initial feedback we received. Nick, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. I believe it's Hussey, or Hussey, Hussey, had 2 topics. One was, I know you have touched on this plenty of times in this group, but how do you determine real from fake cards, in person and from pictures only? I know that this, we've touched on this topic just a few days ago. So Mark, do you want to kind of answer that one real quick?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you could see very quick signs of a fake artificially aged card. One of them that I see all the time on eBay is those cracks in the cards. You'll see a ton of cracks, and those cracks are just indicative of it was wet at one point with that staining, whatever they're doing to make it look a little dark and aged. And then after it dries, it almost kind of gets a little bit brittle, and it makes these little craters, but they're not like wrinkles or anything like you normally see with, hey, you ding a card or whatever it is. But you'll see these cracks front and back usually. And that's the first thing I've noticed on, I'd say 8 out of 10 fakes now on eBay. So that's as soon as you see that, it's going to be a counterfeit. But at the back of it, I like to look at the back of a lot of the older cards, because it's really hard to fake that older looking cardboard.
Right.
So you'll look at that artificial wear on the edges, and you'll see some white. Man, that's bad. because it means that that has been, in essence, died at one point to
Right.
look old, but it's really not. So if you're a new person just getting into the hobby, like for instance, David, I had a guy, he collects uh, old arrowheads, and he's in the business, right? And he's now all of a sudden wants to get into the vintage card business. He's got the fever. We've seen that fever 100 times with people, right?
Oh yeah.
And he really wants to learn more and more about it. But he's already sent me probably 20 pictures of fake Mickey Mantles every single time. Hey, is this?
Wow.
And I feel like I'm repeating the same lesson to him. Hey, look, if
Yeah.
it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. If it's on eBay, I'm going to tell you that
Yeah.
right now.
If you found a $20 mantle, be careful.
If you always see the scam as just like it's a steal, man. Like it's not just a
Yeah.
steal, like $20 cheaper or $50 cheaper. It's like $100 cheaper. It's like
It's
I better get this
it's
quick.
a steal. It's a steal for the person buying selling it, right?
Yeah, and I kind of didn't talk about this in the counterfeit card episode, but it's like I really do vouches when I buy Mickey Mantles, or I go and I look
Yeah.
at their ratings, and I'm going to read on eBay all these experiences, and you can tell, who's a legit dealer from a non-legit dealer. So you don't necessarily have to be able to tell a real card from a fake card. Maybe a real person from a
Right.
fake dealing person, and if you could just deal with people you trust, hey, you know what? You're going to eventually know a fake once it gets in your hand.
Right.
It takes so many cards to go through your hands and so many sets. And that's kind of how I learned, David. I started doing these fire sales and breaking all these collections. So they all came through my hands. And I started to notice, hey, this one doesn't look right. And I
Right.
started to
Right.
study it. And then I started realizing I like Mickey Mantle cards. So I wanted to learn how to tell the real ones from the fake ones. So I
Right.
studied real cards. I knew what a 1960s tops looks like, right? So if I want to buy Mickey Mantle, which is one of his best Mickey Mantle cards, right? The 1960 tops, great pose. That particular card, I can tell you usually off of a photo as soon as I see it, but you need to have the real cards in front of you, and then you could study up close pictures of some of these cards online. And you know
Right.
what? If you have real examples, just study it. The lines are usually solid on the real cards. Sometimes you'll see some counterfeits where, they try to imitate these circular symbols that are kind of like the Rosetta pattern, but they're not exactly right. And those are the more sophisticated counterfeits. So I would say if it's not behind a slab, you need to know what you're doing,
Right. Yeah.
or trust,
Excellent.
or trust who you're buying it from.
Yeah, I think that's excellent feedback. I mean, I think I agree. Look, the one thing I'll add to that, the layer I'll add to that is, in my years in the hobby and before, and not to bore anybody with my history, but just real quick, obviously unopened's my big niche now. But before I even touched unopened, I was I was all about slabs, and I was one of the folks in the top 10 for the Roberto Clemente Master set. Way back in the day, I was really into it. And I was so not just that, but I was buying a lot of vintage. So, I may be far removed from now, and I still dabble with slabs, but not as like I used to. But my point is that I think when it comes to certain players, my rule of thumb, I'm not telling anyone what to do, but my rule of thumb is I add an extra layer of security when it comes to seriously popular players. And I can, real quick, Mantle, no question, right? Ruth, no, Michael Jordan, you know, Wayne Gretzky. I if I'm going to buy a card online, I need some serious confidence that I'm going to be buying a legit card. And it just because I need to understand who am I buying it from, and understand, is it somebody that has somebody that I trust, have they bought from them before. So there's a lot to me. I add the extra layer real quick especially when it's a popular name.
Right. So we're hosting this on my page, right? So what we have here is the ability to talk about vouchers. There's no harm in asking for vouchers in the hobby. In my opinion, that's the best thing about Facebook sales versus eBay sales. eBay sales, you can't really communicate with the seller, and I can't say, hey, give me the information of 4 or 5 people I can talk to that has bought these type of cars from me in the past, right? In the Facebook world, we go behind the scenes and we say, okay, we need some vouchers. So if you're a seller, use vouchers. If you're a buyer, use vouchers, because it's
Right.
good to know on larger transactions who you're about to mail a car to just as much as someone, buying from you, right?
Right.
Because people can scam you on the backside of it, right? If I'm sending $1,000 card off, I kind of want to know that Dave is not going to try to charge back something to me and say that he didn't get something or it was damaged or whatever.
Yeah.
So I really believe that that's one of the big things I wanted to communicate tonight is there's never any embarrassment, and you should never take it personal or it's against your pride. If you say, hey, I need some vouchers, hey, no problem. Let's do some vouchers. I want you to
Absolutely.
vouch. I want you to vouch me because I want to get the deal done, and I got
Yeah.
nothing to hide, right? And
Yeah.
if you got something to hide, that's where it starts to get interesting. So
Yeah. No, that's sound advice. I totally support that. I've never been offended when someone asks for vouch,
me neither,
regardless of how long I've been in this business. In this business, I'm sorry, in this
because
hobby. You know,
I'm gonna ask for vouchers too. So it's like, hey, no
yeah,
problem.
I,
I'm gonna
I've
vouch you
done
too, man.
exactly. I've done it as well. To your
I'm not
point,
gonna send $1,000 card in the mail without kind of knowing, hey, you know what? Like this guy is a legit person. I mean, it
yeah,
happens all the time where people claim, hey, look, this wasn't, I didn't get this or whatever it is. I kind of like to know I'm dealing with legit people buying from me as well. I really do.
yeah. And you know what? It brings me to vouchers aren't just about the cards
That's
being fake or real. Kind of brings me to my next question here, which is the my little game show insert. It's going to bring me to the next question, which is about shipping, right? Sometimes the voucher is like, hey, is this good person going to pack my $5,000 card like properly? And Mark, we had an awesome episode not too long ago about shipping. And again, I don't want to steal thunder, but and I'll get to the questions here in a bit. But I think this is a perfect segue. Talk to us a little bit about shipping, and if you don't mind citing that example again from our pre-recorded interview. And before you do, guys, if you want to see what we're talking about, the 2 episodes on detecting fakes and the videos, Mark has links on his page on the Hobby Networking Group YouTube channel. You'll see it there, or on the Facebook group. There's links to it as well. 2 great episodes I did with Mark, and he gave some great advice and some examples of what he's dealt with. So, Mark, go ahead and chime in if you can, please, on shipping and some of the things you've seen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, being an admin of a page, people are going to bring me problems, and we see a lot of issues pretty much weekly. And it's usually someone that just got back into the hobby. They just don't know any better, or they inherit cards and they just don't know any better, or you're just hoping they don't know any better. But sometimes it is a level of pride, and they
Yeah,
just take a whole lot of pride in their cards, like you might, right? So, an example, bubble mailers. I mean, it's just not enough protection with a top loader. You need to put some additional protection for crushing. So, one of the examples that happened recently is I had made a package to be waterproof, which is one of the most underrated things in shipping. Like the last thing you want to do is replace cards, David, because you can't go buy new cars that week if you're replacing.
unless you live in the South in the summer and have a pool, you really
Right.
should be thinking.
Right. So one of my guys, I set them cards, and I guess they have like a gate, and the guy threw the package over the gate, and it bounced into a baby pool, and it did float
Oh,
for 2 or 3 hours. He told me. So the
oh
car
man,
survived, but I'm telling you, rain proofing or waterproofing your cards is probably one of the most underrated things in shipping right now. We have,
yeah,
like today it rained 2 inches of rain here in New Orleans. If my Porsche gets any package delivered on it, it's destroyed. I'm telling you.
oh yeah,
And
yeah.
I would say that everybody who's a serious collector, it takes $50 to go open up a 6-month post office box to keep your cards dry and safe and Porsche Pirates away.
Mhm.
So it's really it's worth buying that investment. I promise you.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And even just from the shipping, you got to do your best with the team bags and throwing the layers, if you will, in the packaging to minimize any damage. And let me tell you, I mean, look, I dealt with plenty of weather up north when I used to live there, and I recently moved down south. And let me tell you, downpours down here are downpours. So if they throw my box there and I didn't get to it in time and a downpour comes, I mean, yeah, cardboard doesn't react very well to water, so you kind of hope they packed it well.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go on here to another topic, Mark. This one's also from Nick, but it's more a question now that I think would spark some good conversation. So Nick was asking, who are the most undervalued vintage players that you feel could blow up in the coming years? I have a couple, but I want to hear what you have to say on that first.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think there's a second tier of superstars that really just I think they're going to get hotter over time because I think they're bargains for their place in history. People that come to mind would be like, that Frank Robinson, even like an Ernie Banks, because I mean he was a phenomenal player, but he's kind of overshadowed by that upper tier. I don't know who you're thinking of, but those were a couple people I thought of right
Man,
away.
no, but now that you mention it, I don't know why Frank Robinson's so cheap. That guy was a beast,
I
and
mean,
I never understood why his rookie card is so friggin' cheap. Bob Gibson's another one that comes to mind. It's,
you know what?
I mean,
About Bob Gibson. Bob Gibson was like a bad, bad man in baseball. That guy, and I mean, his rookie card is a short print card because it's that high number, and
yeah,
it does get some love. But even Yaz's, I mean, rookie card. I mean, you could get a
yeah,
really nice Yaz rookie card for like 150. I mean,
yeah, yeah. No, that's a fair point. I was taking a different direction, and actually, I mean, there's a lot of examples. Those are some really good ones. I'm gonna get off into the non-Hall of Fame side of things. And so I don't know if Nick's watching this or he'll watch it later because this link will stay available on your page and on mine. So undervalued vintage players that could blow up in a couple years. My short answer to that are players that are on the fence to join the Hall of Fame. I'm thinking of Donnie Baseball. I'm thinking of Dale Murphy. I'm thinking of Lou Whitaker. I'm thinking of Tommy John, Steve Garvey. These are guys that you can get like a PSA 9 for a couple bucks. No, not a couple, but a couple $100. And I think that if they hit the Hall of Fame, that number will likely change.
yeah, I agree with that. There's definitely a few guys that come to mind. Richie Allen, to me, is probably the
Yeah,
guy that stands out of all of that group. If we're talking who probably has the best argument in the vintage world, it's got to be him. You look at his stats; they're just up there. I mean, he's just really an underrated player for the time period. I don't know if it's just you're not in the right market sometimes and you don't get
yeah,
love like the Yankees players. We even worship their secondary stars a little bit stronger than some of these other bigger stars like the Richie Allens. So
yeah,
I think that there's some players like that that come to mind. Kurt Flood, he had a pretty
yeah,
nice little career. And you look at anyone tied to the Negro Leagues that is in the early 50s.
yeah, yeah,
You got to pay attention to them a lot more. But I know a lot of that stuff's already gotten hot. So
yeah,
maybe it's not a secret anymore. But there's
yeah.
still great buys for anyone that was a star in the Negro Leagues that came into Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and those early and mid tops 50s series that showcase their cards. That's
Oh
that's another
yes,
really good one. Yeah.
yes, all of those guys in those mid 50s, a lot of good deals.
Yeah. John Felino chimed in there with some Yankee legends he thinks still are undervalued. He said guys like Berra, Rizzuto, Whitey Ford, also affordable, and the market for Yankee legends will always be huge. You know what? Fair point. Fair point. And I don't disagree with any of those players, especially Berra. I mean, he ran out of fingers with all the rings he has. He's
Yeah,
a yeah.
yeah, and Whitey Ford had an outstanding World Series career, and he doesn't get the kind of love maybe he should. But I've been looking at his rookie autograph card, and I've been probably close to pulling the trigger on one of those before it gets a little bit too steep in price because there's
Yeah.
not a lot of them out there, right? And that's just one of my little things. I love the rookie autograph cards. That
Yeah.
it's a finite resource. There's not many of them. It's a personalized card to the Hall of Fame, or it's a more unique product. Some people hate them, right? But to
Yeah.
me, they're just a cooler card. If one is sitting on the table next to the other, one's signed, one's not. Which one you grabbing, David?
Yeah. Yeah, no, fair point. Fair point, man. I will. I'm gonna add another layer to this, Mark. You know, when you talk about undervalued players in general, and this is probably a whole episode in and of itself to this question, which is why I love talking about this. But I'll stop here so we can move on to the next. Is pitchers versus hitters in general,
Man,
outside of a handful of pitchers, you know, the Nolan Ryans, you know,
yeah,
but how many legendary pitchers have, like, one that comes to mind, Fergie Jenkins, right? Like, I mean, what a beast of a pitcher. How cheap is his rookie card? It's pretty cheap,
and you
you
talking
know?
like a Chicago guy, a big city. It's not like not like New Orleans, like a small town, or just a small city. It's a big town, so I would think that that is one that could go up in time.
Yeah, yeah. I think that pitchers in general, I mean, the newer generation pitchers are definitely starting to get some love, which I love. Like Greg Maddux, you know, comes to mind. He's getting some love now, and you know, in the market, and is due credit. But yeah, it seems like they have a lot more in terms of obstacles to get to that legend status. So I think in general, it seems like a lot harder for pitchers than hitters when it comes to the baseball card market.
Yeah,
Um,
and you pick Greg Maddux, but I mean, really, you look at anybody around that time period, even the hitters, just because of the quantity of those cars, David. I just don't think the demand for those will ever really be the same, no matter how
yeah.
elite they were. Everybody knows Maddox is the man, right? Everybody knows it. Too bad he couldn't have been printed in 1960, because then, or
Yeah,
find
yeah. No, that's
it's too bad he's not a 1967 high number, because
yeah, yeah.
we put him up there with Seaver. Then different kind of pitchers, right? But just as great as the other in some ways.
Yeah, they were both legend for sure.
Right,
But you're
but
right. Yeah.
you can steal one card for nothing, and you better save up a lot of pennies for the Seaver rookie now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's one of, you know, we again for another episode, you know, maybe the what card do you regret selling the most in my top five is definitely my Stever at a PSA 7. I totally regret selling that
Oh
many
man,
years ago, my friend. Many years ago.
yeah, you
So
won't buy it again.
but I digress. So let's move on here. Let's see here. I'm gonna try to go in order here. Okay, so let me talk about this one here. So Chris, and again, I don't want to butcher last names, but Larmoyeux, I think Larmoyeux. He commented, one thing I've always been curious about is how to find vintage cards offline, i.e., not eBay or Facebook. There must be a good amount of vintage out there in the wild, but where? So let me see what else he writes here. Seems either most online have already been snatched up and purchasing their means you're paying for a premium. So yeah, I mean, he brings up a good question. You know, the find is something that a lot of people, um, you know, are looking for, and I guess in general, do you have any tips? I know that's a winded one too, Mark, but you know, for anyone who's looking, especially new collectors, a good place to find cards.
Well, I mean, this is pretty much what I've hunted for pretty much since I realized I'm addicted to vintage cars, right?
Nice
So
one, Mark.
I tried to like turn some of my old business game and brought it to the table here in the vintage world, right? And I was always a good marketer, right? And I taught people actually how to prospect business. So I kind of applied a lot of the same techniques into this. So I did a Facebook ad, my first true, like, let me hunt down a collection. Like, I got the bug. I want to buy more of this, but I don't want to buy just one widget. I want like 100,000 widgets at once, right? I want to bring them all in, all these cards. So
Right.
I basically did a Facebook ad and I said, "Hey, I'm buying collections," and I had a hit pretty much instantaneously. I put it on like 10 different Facebook marketplace ads locally, and I went there and she had a nice little box of about 100 1958 baseball cards. So I guess whatever the kid was, he opened up just that 1 year of cards, right? So it had, I think, 5 Willie Mays All-Star cards. For whatever reason, that was one of the main cards that they had in this group of cards. So it had several other cool little cards, and I gave her a fair deal on it. So I was leaving. She goes, "I got a little box of football." And I said, "Well, I don't really collect football. This is me, a rookie at the time, prospecting, about to turn down a box of 1958 Topps football." So I said, "I'll take it."
No.
I said, "I'll take it off your hands." I was in a rush there, but I had to get out of there. It's like most people with kids. You gotta make it count. So I grabbed the box. I gave her an extra $50, and I said, "I'll buy it from you. I'm not even gonna look at it." So I got home, and I probably opened it about a day or two later, and about 10 cards in was a near mint Jim Brown rookie card.
I was gonna say, don't tell me you had a Jim Brown in there.
I got pictures, I got the evidence, and the whole story is really good because she had a light table it was sitting on, and I said, "Does that thing plug in?" But I didn't know it lit up. We plug it in, the light comes on. I'm like, "How much for the table?" So I bought the table for $50 too, and I still use the light table to this day. And that was my first pick, and I almost felt like it was like guy was like teaching me, like, "Hey, look, this is what you need to get into." So ever since then, I've bought, I don't know how many cards and collections and sold them, but I sell a lot of cards, David.
Yeah. No, and I think there's no easy answer to that question. So to kind of summarize, it's still out there. I guess is the best, additional comment I could make to that. It's still out there. There's a lot of ways to go about it, but there's still a lot of people out there with collections out, and it's just a matter of just kind of hunting them down, yard sales and advertisement, that kind of stuff. So if that's something you're really into, you're gonna have to put the work into it, but I'm sure you'll find it.
So I'll give you another tip, a really easy one. Everybody who is on Facebook with you needs to know you collect baseball cards and that you buy collections, because you will get 1 or 2 referrals if you put it out there on your network. So don't be embarrassed to claim that you're a nerd. Don't be embarrassed to say that you love playing with baseball cards. It's okay. The more people know about it, the more people will actually refer you in to the great uncle's collection. And you may not buy it. You may not be the person that has enough money to buy this $100,000 plus cost type collection, but there's always ways that you can get involved and help them. Okay. So sometimes they just need advice, right? But you just need to put yourself out there, David. I used to always tell that to all the people that used to build the insurance books of business, that I would say, "Hey, look, you can't go out there and sell benefits plans if you don't tell people what you do for a living, because everybody wants benefits at work." So I would tell them this all the time. So, hey, go on your Facebook and tell everybody today. So you will get leads. I'm telling you, if you do a post on your personal Facebook and you say, "Hey, I'm a nerd and I love baseball cards," tell everybody in your life that you can call me. I'm the baseball card guy locally. And that's really what it is, because they're going to trust you more than still David and me long distance.
Right.
You can walk in and you can say, "Hey, let me tell you what you really got." So one of the things I've done is, because I've been able to discover collections, I'll just say, "Hey, I can buy it," or, "You know what, I can work in partnership and help you sell it."
Right. Yeah. No, that is
what to do. They really have no idea what to do, but you can give them help, and everybody can benefit, because people that love cards. They have no idea who loves cards. And I tell you what, I had someone approach me with a deal not that long ago, David. And what happened is, they were offered $1,000 to go to a major auction house online on eBay. I will not say their name. I said, "Send it to me and we'll put it through the auction process." You know what we ended up yielding? They wanted to give them $1,000 up front.
right.
And that's it. We ended up getting $5,000 on auctions. So it just goes to show you, like, sometimes it is good to just sell
5,000. Wow.
right? So, you know, and that's just an example of just a small group of cards that had a lot of plenty valuable cards in this one little group of cards. And you know what? The uncle, he was like in his 80s. He tuned in and he watched it. He enjoyed it so much. He'd been hauling these cards around his whole life. Didn't collect them, but
Yeah.
had this group of cards for whatever reason. It traveled with them for 50 years. No, yeah, actually 50 years.
No, and that's great, and some again, some good info there. I think
Brian
the key point here is a lot of outlets, and I agree with you.
So Brian wants to know about
football. I posted Brian, and hey Brian, thanks for joining in.
So on the football, I'm going to tell you right now, I think that is a good theory Brian is talking about, because basketball got hot, David, right? All of a sudden, everybody's paying attention to 70s and 60s basketball, and it got so hot that you can't touch some of it anymore. Does football ever take that? You know, because really, if you look at the grand scheme of it, their major stars are still undervalued when you compare them now to even basketball. So I think that is a good theory, that football megastar rookie cards might be good buys in the long run, because really, look at your cost basis.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I think at some point, you know, I think it's inevitable that football in that particular era that he's referring to will get hot. Although I do think certain cards, i.e. Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, those cards did kind of spike. But I do agree, there's certain cards that I don't understand why they haven't gone higher in the 70s. There's many names. You know, I'm a Steeler fan, so I'll talk about Bradshaw and Frank
card. I think is underpriced. Really,
it's crazy. I think Franco Harris. You know, some of these Steeler cards, I'm like, oh my god. You know, obviously there's a lot of other. You know, Roger Staubach. You know, there's
Staubach's rookie card is undervalued in my opinion. You know, again, if you're looking at like all the megastars of the time period, I mean, look at Smith's rookie card. If we're talking baseball here in 1973, right?
Right.
Then you look at 72, what is it? 71 is Bradshaw's card. So it's not that many years off, but completely different price points if we're looking at the same PSA 7 level.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you. So let's segue here to another comment or kind of a question here. This is kind of a long-winded one. We'll try to touch on this as best we can. Paul Alfari wrote "Scammers and How to Avoid Them." That is a long and winded one. So, you know, there's a lot of things. I'll let you start things off. I'll chime in there in a bit. So what's your take on the very, oh God, what did I say, the difficult topic that we've all dealt with, no matter how much experience we have in this hobby, we've all been there. You know, even this year I've been already dinged once or twice, and you know, it just happens. So Mark, what's your take on how to handle that?
Yeah, you know, scamming is I think more of a chronic problem in ultra modern and modern. We don't see as many of these in vintage because I just don't think that it attracts as much. But is it there? I look at different forms of scamming, right? If people knowingly sell cards that they know have problems, right? That's scamming, right? If they don't, you know, describe a card 100% accurate, you know, it's like a second cousin of scamming, right? So it's not always just, you know, the obvious, which is, hey, this guy's trying to sell a fake Mickey Mantle. Yeah, that's possibly scamming. But you know what? People are going to call that out on the page because we have so many experts on this page that I have, that if you put a fake Mickey Mantle, everybody will know. Believe me. So that's one of the things that I like about Facebook sales. You kind of have like the whole group behind you on fakes, right? And we look at everything that we approve. But you want to deal with, if you're going to buy on Facebook, because I really think a lot of people are turning to Facebook to buy, you know, you're going to look at a profile. One of the things I want to see is I want to look at their profile, and I want to see if they have interactions like likes. So if you see a lot of likes on it, you see 20, 30 likes on it, that's a good sign. If they have a spouse tied to their profile or someone they date and they look like a real profile, it's okay to stalk whoever you're buying from potentially, right? For a second to see, is this a real profile? Is this a real person? And I think that that's one way I would always just say you can almost get a gut instinct, a sick feeling in your stomach when you know you got a possibility of it. And you know what I would say? If you start to get that feeling, don't even do the deal.
Yeah. Yeah,
Don't even do
absolutely.
it.
Again, sound advice. I mean, look, if your instincts start kicking in and something just doesn't feel right, I mean, now you have to start thinking price versus risk. And look, if it's a couple bucks and you're like, all right, I'll gamble, that's up to you. But
If they
it
get
comes with,
weird, if they get weird, right? Weird is like rushing you, right? Or double talking or anything like that. I would just say you just
yeah,
kind of get them talking, right? Just get them conversating with you. Make them uncomfortable. Ask them for more evidence, more photos. Ask them to coin the photo. Hey, do you mind showing me that you have this card in your possession? Coining is really, people don't
right.
realize why you want to coin pictures because people sell sometimes on float cards where they could go buy a card somewhere. So they pre-list it thinking they could go buy it cheaper than what they're going to list it for. People don't talk about these type of scams, but that's why we want to know if they have the real photo in front of them sometimes, not just hey look, we stole a photo off of eBay or for somebody. Yeah, that's what usually it's going to be, but sometimes it's float buying, and that's the ones that are late shippers, David. Like
Yeah,
they ship you like 2 weeks late, 3 weeks late, and you're like, what the hell? I've been asking for
yeah.
tracking for a week. They finally get it to you, but I always theorized that they were pre-selling a card that they did not have in their possession.
I totally agree with you. I really do. I think that's happened to many, many, many times. They have an in somewhere on a card.
Right,
They try to sell it before they even own it,
right. And then
and then
maybe
they're rushing around to get it.
they might have had good intentions and their neighbor asked them to sell a card and they've been dodging for 2 weeks. I don't know. But if you don't have the card in your possession, don't list it.
I agree. I agree. Look, if there's the right way to do things, and I think to your point, if something just doesn't seem right, you need to be real careful. And just go with your gut, and everything we were talking about before about vouches and that stuff plays key, and understanding too, like looking at their history. All that advice you gave before to me is solid advice, and I do it personally when I'm going to buy something. So with someone new, just to make sure I'm making the right call. So good stuff there. I'm going to shift gears here now, and this is definitely your expertise. On this next question is how to competitively and fairly price raw cards. Um, and let me read this whole thing off to you, and then you kind of figure out how you want to answer this. So it says here, and this is Kenny Endermuir. It says how to competitively and fairly price raw cards. In other words, I see it in three sections. One, how to honestly assess your own raw cards. Is my idea of near mint the same as the other guy? Two, what types of comps should be used? Facebook, from auctions, PSA registry, etc. Three, graded prices shouldn't be expected on ungraded cards, but is there a rule of thumb? I.e., we both agree a card would grade a 6, so maybe 80% of that value. I mean, these are some really good points that Kenny brings up. Mark, what's your take on that?
Wow, man, that was a deep question. Let's see.
I know that's a winded one, right? Right. So I mean, let's just bring it to the let's start off with the basics, right? Like you're gonna buy a raw card that you really want for your set. How do you even go about, determining the price on it if it's just an interaction between a
I'll tell you, I really like to study cards at auction. I like to study why they go a little bit more because you'll see sometimes a PSA 5 will go for like, let's say $100 in one auction, but then 75 in another for the same exact card, right? But one is a little bit OC from the other, right? So the eye appeal was a lot stronger on one. So that's where I like to look
Mhm.
at sold auctions on eBay, and I like to look at least 15 examples on the average card. Like I like to go down that list, and I try to find,
Yeah.
what are those patterns, and I like to stay within the last 2 to 4 weeks if I can, unless there's just no examples, right? Because the less examples there are, you may have to go, hey, I might need 3 months to look at what's been happening with this card, right? So we know, David, a year has changed a lot in values on everything. I mean, a lot of cards, like a lot of Mickey Mantles in general, have doubled in value in just 12 months. So people say, hey, things have fallen off of February's highs. Yes, they have, but year over year, it's still way up. And
Absolutely.
people just don't realize it's still been red hot. The evidence is the page continues to grow by hundreds of people a week. It couldn't just happen just because of coincidence. People love collecting cards. And you wonder how much COVID pandemic has just kickstarted so many extra people collecting. So they want to know where the values are going to be. Well, it is evolving right now. I theorize after National, things are going to start to go up a little bit more because a lot of people came back fired up from Nationals. I mean, I've been
Oh yeah.
hearing a lot of stories, and all of a sudden I'm starting to see my auctions trend up a little bit more on
Yeah.
Raw. So go look at eBay solds if you're looking at a raw card,
Yeah.
and go see what several examples have sold for at auction. Sometimes people will list it on an eBay, and they will ask X amount of dollars, and people will just agree to it, and that could be a higher than normal comp. But hey, that guy just wanted to get that card tonight, right? He didn't want to wait for
Yeah.
the auctions. And that's okay. You can use that as hey, you know what? It's a factor, but it's not necessarily the comp I like to use most of the time. Kick
Right.
out the one that's weird at the bottom and the one that's weird at the top.
Yeah.
It's like there's
Good
always
advice.
aberrations. Like hey, sometimes people are going to overpay for cards, David, because here it is. We're drinking on the Friday night. All of a sudden, Mickey Mantle cards might be looking good. I might have gotten a bonus that day. And I'm like,
Everything looks good after a lot of drinks.
wait, you know what happened to me a few times, like where you do like that crazy bid at the end, and you're like, no, it's not going to jump $100, or it's not going to jump $200, and then you do it. You're like, oh, it
Yeah.
jumped a lot, and then you end up stuck with like a really, really high bid on a card. And you're like,
You accidentally hit an extra zero on there. You're like, what did I do?
it hurts, man.
Oh
So
yeah.
expensive
Yeah.
mistakes, and I do theorize that can happen. But
Yeah.
some people like to use more database oriented ideas out there. There are things you can join that give you access to pure data and all auctions, not just eBay. I
Yeah.
won't plug any of those because I don't use them. But I know
Yeah.
a lot of people rave over certain other technologies out there that give you all that into one place. I
Yeah.
sometimes like to go to PSA's registry when I'm buying PSA cards in particular and look at everything. You
Yeah.
could go right there and look at all the auctions, and it does give you everything that you can need, plus the front photo, right? You want to be able to look and see, hey, what is the eye appeal of that seven versus a different seven, and
Right.
they're $300 difference in sold price within a week of each other. Why? And it's usually going to be eye appeal. Something is different about the way it's aligned or something, and when you look at it, it's just not as attractive. So when you have that factor, just keep in mind the comps are going to trend lower on lower eye appeal,
Yeah.
and they're going to trend higher on higher eye appeal. At the end of the day, if it's centered, that's a whole lot more appealing, even if it's got softer corners than an off-center, slightly nicer condition card.
100% agree on that. That's some good points there. I think I was gonna say my information is very dated from my raw set collecting days, but there was one or two, and I'm gonna refrain from plugging them, but if somebody wants to PM me, I'll share. Again, my info's dated. There was one or two few, again, many years in the hobby, earned their reputation, and when they said something was near mint, they would sell raw cards online. It was near mint, at least at that time, and so I felt comfortable. And sure enough, everything I bought was spot on, or even rating higher, than what they were stating their card to be once I sent it into PSA. So
Let me tell you, that's
All right. So
I don't.
on that,
Hey,
oh,
David,
sorry, go ahead.
David, I want to stop you right there because you just brought up something that I see everywhere. People overstate the grade of their raw cards. They always want to say that it's near mint. You're looking at this card, it's just like, man, you got like a bad ding on like the left corner here. Yeah, the other three
Right.
corners might look good, but that ding on the left side is pretty bad. That's going to be like a VG card, really. And people are doing this all over eBay and sometimes on Facebook. I'm going to tell you right now, don't take anybody's word for condition. Look at their photos unless you know that they undergrade in general. Okay. Me, I
Yeah.
like to grade all my cards because I never want to have anybody upset that gets their card. It's like I just need peace in my life, David. So
Yeah.
I'd rather you be pleasantly surprised when you get your cards versus
Yeah.
displeased, right? And you
Yeah.
know what?
Versus
So you
Mark versus doing this when you open your box. We've all been there, man.
let me tell you, it hurts when you get a box that makes you feel that way, David.
Oh man, it really does, Mark. Yeah, we've all been there, man. But you're spot on. I think some people think they have like this PSA 8, this PSA 9, and it's like, and they're selling it to you raw, like, man, this thing's pretty beat up. What were you thinking? You gave some good advice at one point or another. I forget where when we were talking about it. About only demonstrate the card outside of it. Some people like to get clever or try to get clever on eBay auction stuff and just leave it in the top loader. I would never buy it. I mean, me personally, I don't buy raw that much barely anymore. I wouldn't buy anything on eBay in a top loader somebody's claiming is near mint. You can't tell. You really can't tell what's wrong with that card on in a picture, with it's still in the holder.
Yeah, they give you a vague description, or it's like a really scratched up screw down usually, and
Oh
that's
my
usually.
God, yeah.
I hate screw downs in general, but I hate the ones that are scratched up and it's like a Mickey Mantle behind it. And they're trying to basically sell this card, and you can't tell if it's got wrinkles. You can't tell the surface. You can't.
Right.
You can barely tell if it's a real card, right? And that's how a lot of counterfeiters fake cards anyway. They put them behind hard cases that you can't tell. I would say if you buy any card $25 in value or greater, that card should be raw completely, like no sleeve, no loader. This is a rule on my page. It's like you post Hall of Fame cards that you want $100 for a card. Well, you know what? You're wondering why it's not selling if you don't, do the right photos. Well, it's the same thing if you let it hide behind a loader or something and you can't show, hey, I can't see the corners on this card. It's like
Right.
if you can't see that, you wonder why your stuff's not selling. It's like people won't buy what they can't see. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and you wonder, it's like, do you ever buy cards? Like, if you buy cards, you could probably see that you're not doing a good job selling your cards, right?
Yeah.
So if you're wondering why you're not selling your cards, take a look at your photos, take a look at your descriptions. These are things that if you just show transparency, everybody will buy you duplicates, and now you have more money to go buy other cards.
Yeah. Fair point. Absolutely. You know, oh God, I won't bore you with my old. I sound like an old man now with some of my stories, but man, yeah, you're spot on in everything you're saying. Is all I'm gonna say there. So why don't we do? Let's move on here. I have another one here for you from Mike McCarthy. He was asking about the value of cards created by different companies and the future of this going forward. So IE, PSA, SGC, Beckett, and what to use for vintage, modern, etc. So what I'll do is yeah. So let's see here. So basically, the value of the different grading cards. I'll chime in first here and just say, you know, um, obviously PSA leads the way on pretty much everything. Outside of I think the modern world, I know Beckett has pretty long, faithful followers there in the world of modern. Although I really think PSA has caught up in certain, but I can't really talk too well to modern. I'm just I have my toe dipped in the water there with my son who collects modern, so I'm not the best frame of reference there. But when it comes to overall value, I think no shock to anybody. PSA leads the way. Um, historically, I'll answer the second part of that question, what to use, vintage modern or what's been used. Beckett was always kind of considered the one that people would go to on the modern front. PSA was kind of like the overall leader, if you will, except for maybe modern. And the SGC had this really loyal fan base, especially for the tobacco card era and the Babe Ruths, those really like those pre-war cards. A lot of the earlier guys really loved, and I understand. I mean, honestly, the first generation SGC slabs were like really nice looking. You were putting tobacco cards in that all black bordered, they had to be the nicest looking slab at the time. So that's kind of the history. But Mark, what's your take on that? The three companies, the values, and what's used for what?
I have theories of why PSA gets more money. But I mean, it's really a completely different price point. I mean, if we say, hey, I have an EX level card, right? Excellent grade.
Did we lose you there, buddy? I think we got some internet issues there. Let's give another second. Hey, Mark, you there with us, bud?
Let's see. I might have lost you.
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. Can you see me?
I absolutely see you. You're good on my side.
All right. So David, I do auctions, right? So PSA has historically, if I have an excellent grade, and let's say it's an SGC excellent grade, and let's say I have GMA excellent grade, same card, right? You will get significantly more for the PSA if I put all three of them back to back at auction. And
oh yeah,
and I think there's a couple reasons why. I do believe there's a perception that they're harsher to grade, and I will tell you, after my last sub, for sure they're harsher to grade compared to the SGC sub I got back, which seemed a little bit more realistic to what I expected. They were pretty harsh on some, but I guess that's almost like trying to double down on their reputation that, yeah, we're going to be harsher now. So when you get a 7, it could be an 8 with us. Yeah. Or it could be an 8 with somebody else, or it could be a 9 with somebody else, but it's a 7 with us. And people like that. I don't know how to explain it, but as a set builder, when I did my set building, PSA had most of the slabs in all of my pre-70s that I was building. So I felt like, hey, I want those slabs to match. So I told you that earlier in the broadcast. It's like, that's important to me. So yeah. I think it's important to a lot of collectors. So since they got their hands on so many early slabs, it's almost like monopolistic in some ways. They have a lot of the best cards already in that 50s and 60s genre. They just have them. 70s, they got a lot of them. SGC is gaining. And I do think that the prices at auction are starting to get a little closer for the SGCs than I had seen a year ago. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of a catch-up going on. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, if you want a card and you want it to be slabbed, you're going to eventually have to give in to the more affordable ones. So naturally, they're going to start to do this.
Yeah.
There's
I know we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think a lot of it is predicated. I mean, there's still time, but if they keep on heading down this path, I think PSA is going to leave the door wide open for to me especially. Again, you hit the nail on the head earlier. SGC is the prime to me authenticator that's out there that has the ability to take over certain segments of the hobby. They're the best equipped, and they have the longest, to me, longest reputation out there in the Beckett. So it'll be interesting to see if they adjust to that and maybe touch on segments like the bulk grading and the value grading for the set collectors, that aren't going to shell out $50 for a common, 1978 player to finish their slab set.
Yeah, I think that there's too much opinion for new collectors getting into the hobby that they have to slab, their cards. They don't need to slab their cards. Like I touched on earlier, I mean, I think you should sit this out for a year if you're a new collector, and other than sentimental reason type cards, maybe you wait for a year to slab your cards. Let's see what's going to happen in a year.
Yeah.
But, certainly right now, I think relative to what, if we look at, let's say you're just going to slab some cards to resell them.
Hmm.
You can't deny that the price quotient to pay for an SGC slab and the time frame to get your money back, your card back, right? Versus PSA, who could hold the card for what, months and months and months, and that's actually
Feels
really
like years.
years. No, really, it's the cost, right? So you
Yeah.
look at really your cost. At some point, you got to say, well, if I'm just going to slab a card to resell it, SGC probably has the best deal in town right now. Even
Yeah.
though you get a little bit less for it when you sell it, you didn't have to spend a whole lot of money to get it, and you didn't have to wait long to get it. So I think that right now they're giving PSA a run for their money in some ways, and a lot of the circles that we're running in, you got to respect that the fact is they're able to deliver within a certain time frame. And you know
Mhm.
what? I don't want to wait 6 months to 9 months for my card. And you know what? I don't want to spend $250 to grade a card either, David.
Yeah.
I think
And I
that's
gotta tell, I gotta, yeah, I'm with you. Look, I gotta tell the, the guys out there that are purely into slabs, as you know, and probably a lot, some of the other folks I've talked to know that my niche is unopened, and currently unopened. And if you think you're waiting a long time right now for slabs, I'm still waiting. I'm going on some of my subs on 11 months to a year right now. I mean, it's taking forever, man. But you got to understand, if anybody knows the process, I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll touch on it real quick. If you're going to submit an unopened pack or Stello to PSA, it goes to California, but then it heads over to our dear friend out in Indiana for verification, right? So, it has to touch Steve Hart's hands. And if for anybody who doesn't know, Steve Hart is like the oracle, and he's the person that we respect the most. When it comes to the unopened world, he touches them, he validates them, and gets sent back to then get encapsulated and graded. So that extra layer adds about a couple more months to what you guys are already waiting for your slab. So that's, yeah, it's tough. You do have to wait a while. Granted, I don't mind waiting because I love the fact that Steve's checking all my stuff out, but yeah, it's a long wait, my friend.
cool, cool.
So yeah. But yeah, I mean, anyway, I think we've touched on a lot of good topics here today, buddy. I kind of went through the gist of the list here. Um, is there anything else you kind of want to add it on to today's episode? Before you do, I do want to say to everybody, this is the inaugural episode that we're doing, the first of what I really believe to be many, with myself and Mark, and also some other really good folks. We'll be naming them episode by episode in the future, where we're going to have these type of discussions about several topics. And sometimes, today we kept it open ended and we left it up to you guys. And really, in the future, we're going to do a lot of the same, because this show's not about us. This show's about you guys. We want to answer your questions. We want to be able to, give any insight that we can. And we're going to have different experts. We're going to have some people that really are honed in and focused on football or hockey, or in my case, like I said, unopened. I'll be happy to share any information I have to help any potential unopened collectors that want to start, or just new or scared. I didn't even get into detecting fakes, but I'll be happy to do that in a future episode about how difficult that is and what I've learned from the greats like Mike and Tim and Steve and all the other folks out there, that can help. But going back to this, we're gonna have a lot of other episodes with a lot of other panel discussions. But yeah, Mark, Mike's all yours. If you want to chime in one last time here on anything and everything, feel free.
Yeah, a lot of people who I think, either you've been collecting, let's say off and on, or you just found your cards again and you're now trying to hone in on what should you do, like what type of collection should you have, right? And I always tell people I think it's good to follow whatever you enjoy and you love. And you can't do everything at once. You need to hone in on probably three set builds or three projects at a time, or you'll find yourself spending way more money than you want and really not accomplishing where you feel satisfied that, hey, look, I'm getting one of these sets done in under 10 years. It's like you can probably knock out one or two sets if you want to build. Let's say, like you said, you did a Roberto Clemente master set. It's like
Yeah,
that's a huge accomplishment. How long did it take you to do that, David?
long time, long time. Those knit. Yeah, it was years. I never got to 100%. I did get close though.
So let me ask you this: it took you years because you're probably doing too many set builds at once, right? You were scattering your dollars, maybe.
Yeah, so part of it was obviously it was at a different era, different time for me. I was certainly making a lot less money at the time. So part of it was definitely financial, Mark, full transparency. So that played in. I was pulling it together in mid-grade, because of my budget.
Right.
Another part of it was I started falling in love with other players and other parts of the hobby, i.e unopened. I started dipping my toe in the water there, and I was like, "This is a pretty expensive hobby. I need to pick because I don't have the budget for
It
both."
is.
And so that was part of it. And then the other part was some of the really like off the wall stuff for Clemente is damn near impossible to find. And when you do get it in auction, only the guys that have really loaded wallets can compete, and I just couldn't compete. So you start talking about. I mean, I did get some of the stuff, like the Sharif coins and all. So a lot of some of these things were the 3D card. I mean, some of these things were really hard to get. I did get them, and but some of them were just like way out of reach. So it's those factors that ultimately made me pivot over.
Right. So, the reason I bring this up is I'm asked, it seems, just all the time. It's like, hey, look, I'm trying to figure out what I should collect. It's like, okay, what do you love? And that's what
Yeah,
the question is. It's like, what do you love? Well, maybe you should pick your favorite team, right?
yeah,
It's really a fun challenge to collect all the different years. Let's say if you're a Cubs fan, okay, go for all the Cubs years that Topps made a card, or
yeah,
maybe you could say that Bowman and Topps, right? If you really
yeah,
want a big challenge, and that will take you years to fulfill that type of project, but your passion is the Cubs. So you know what? I just say you go for it, right?
yeah,
And you could say, hey, you know what? That's crazy, Mark. There's too many Cubs that to collect. Maybe I need to hone in on Ryan Sandberg, or maybe I need to hone in on whoever it is. You said Fergie, right? So
yeah.
you gotta hone in on someone that you think was maybe a star that you would love to maybe attack their set build. And then,
Yeah,
once you do it, you move on to the next one. What I would say is don't try to buy everything. If you
yeah.
do, you'll go nuts and you find that you have a little bit of everything instead of like something great.
You just have a bunch of stuff. Yeah, yeah, Mark,
Yes.
that's really good advice. And let me tell you, and for any new hobbyist that's watching this or that watches this later, Mark is spot on, man. I mean, there are so many new guys that come in. They see all the posts of people that have been buying forever. Check it out, just landed this 51 mantle. And it's like, oh my god, and then they just completely lose focus on their Fergie run, and now they're pivoting over to a mantle. I was like, man, don't do it. Like, stay focused, complete the task, because if you just try to buy everything, you open up or you look at your shelf one day or wherever you store your cards, and you're like, oh my god, I just have a bunch of stuff. Like I don't have a focus. And
That's
and one
right.
thing, yeah, and I think, and I'm sorry, one other thing I'll add to that is one of the think the beauties, and maybe one of the reasons that PSA ended up catapulting over the other guys, was the set registry, creating a level of focus for those that had a hard time getting the focus. But anyway, back to what you're saying, your
Yeah,
information there, you're spot
and
on.
I'm told there's not enough money to do it. So sometimes I'll see that they hoard cars that they don't love, David.
Right.
They will hoard cars that are either duplicates. That's like, okay, this is your duplicates. I know one guy, he's got duplicates of almost every set that was his 1Bs. And he's like, oh man, I can't finish my last ones, man. I need a $2,000 card in this set. And I need a $10,000 card in this set. It's like, dude, you have like almost all duplicates. You need to sell, sell, sell. But
Yeah.
this guy doesn't know. I don't think he's going to be good in sales. So what you do in that scenario is you partner with someone who can sell and take
Yeah.
that money. It's like everybody's got dead money in their boxes, David. You have
Yeah.
dead money. I don't care who you are as a hobbyist. You can probably find a lot of dead money right now in your box that you don't love the card. And if you're looking at a table where, okay, I could get that Clemente rookie, and I got this box of like junk cards that just, but you add it up, it's like, hey, here's a $20 card, here's a $15 card, here's a $5 card.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you less is more, baby. Get
Yeah.
that Clemente card and go start selling. It's not that hard. You just need to know how to package cards. You just need to get it to them safely. You need to protect yourself in the fact that you've done everything you can do to control that card getting to
Yeah.
point A to point B. And you know what? You can go take your dead money and go buy the cards you really want. There's
Mark, more often than not, I love what you're saying there. More often than not, if you're opening up that box and you're like, "Oh my God, I didn't even know I had this," you really didn't love what you had. If you could go to bed at night and think about, "Oh yeah, I have that Seaver rookie," "Oh my God, yeah, I have." That's the cards you love, and those are the ones you should focus in on, or getting more of
That's
those,
right.
or whatever.
And if you ever have to liquidate your baseball card collection for an emergency, if something weird happens and you just need to get all your cake together in one spot, believe me, you'll be glad that it's in the Clemente rookie instead of a whole bunch of stuff that, $20 cards, $10 cards, or duplicates that you don't really love. Get rid of those dead cards in your box. Somebody does want them,
Right.
but you know what? Maybe to you, they're not as valuable
Yeah.
anymore. And you know what? Wisdom is really important in this hobby now. You have wisdom, David. I have wisdom. The more buys and sells you do, you're going to know when a steal is out there. And you know what? You got a lot of dead money in your cards if you've been in this. Let's say you got into the pandemic hobby and you really bought a lot of cards the last year or two, and now you're trying to get that focused and now single out. Okay, I want to do 5 sets, but I got like the start of 20 sets. You know what? Those other 15 sets, you can sell
Yeah.
those off right now and probably use your wisdom now of being in the game for a year or two and go buy the right collections. And you know what? Sometimes purchasing power is everything. Go buy a lot of
Yeah.
cards, maybe the lot of the same year that you want to put that set together, because you're going to get a much better deal if you can go buy 200 of 1960 tops in one lot than go and buy 5 of them or 3 of them.
Yeah.
You really
Yeah.
will. I mean, you're going to average
Yeah.
a lot less per card and you can get your set together.
Yeah, and I'll give a real life example of this, and I by no means do I regret it, but your great your great comments there all made me remember, and I have no regrets. And I loved the set. Don't get me wrong, and maybe one day I'll do it again. But I had the 56 tops master set with all the white backs, all the
Nice.
grays, and all the team card variations.
Seriously.
And I had the whole set, and I little by little, when I started realizing that my true love was unopened and how expensive unopened was, I looked at that master set and I was like, I'm not looking at this a lot anymore. I'm not really, there's a couple cards that I really liked, and I held on to them as long as I could, but I was like, you know what, I'm okay. I think somebody else is going to enjoy this than more than me. So I got rid of the set.
Look, I blew up my collection twice already, David. I mean, I blew it up. I had
Yeah.
an 1860 top set that in some ways I maybe regret selling, but I took the money I got from a very high grade 1960s top set that I hand built. I took it and I bought a whole bunch of Venezuela tops, and I really enjoy having unique cards and something that people don't have. And I don't
Wait, he's not referring to Fernando Valenzuela 1981.
Wait, what?
I was saying, I was like, you weren't referring to Fernando Valenzuela 1981.
No, Venezuela tops. Basically, my
I know, I'm just messing with you.
he's messing with these dogs are starting to mom.
Yeah, no.
My girl,
No, but no, but that's awesome. I'll tell you what, man, those Venezuelas are tough, but that's a labor of love, and that's where your heart is right now, right?
Oh, I love it. I mean, I like
Yeah,
having cards that have very limited numbers printed of
yeah,
them. I like the scarce cards. I like having cards that David doesn't have, right?
yeah. Yeah, that was a tough one for me to get in my master set, by the way. Those Venezuela cards.
Oh,
So
definitely, definitely.
yeah, but no, that's great stuff. I mean, Mark, I'll tell you what, we'll stop right there for this episode. But guys, before we do, just want to finish up by saying, this again, just a repeat, is the first of many. We're gonna have we definitely want some feedback from everybody regarding what they want to hear, what kind of discussions you want. We'll have multiple guests, not just myself and Mark in the future. We can hone in on specific topics if you guys want. Again, you guys create this show. We're just here to, we'll do our best to facilitate and answer those questions. I also wanted to take this opportunity to just remind everyone, the YouTube channel is Hobby Networking Group. I also have the podcast. This episode, I will be editing it down to audio only and putting it on there this weekend. So if you missed it and you just want to hear while you're driving in the car, whatever, it's on Spotify. It's also on iTunes. So you'll have access to it there. Mark, if you have a second, want to plug your awesome Facebook group, please do so.
Yeah, if you're not on my page, one of the things that I've tried to do with this page is make it freedom to sell the way you want to sell, other than we don't do razzes just because, it's negative attention. So at the end of the day, what we have is a page that you can sell your collections and you can put it in any format you want. But one of the things that I'm proud of is we have very few scams that ever really hit our page. We watch it like a hawk. And really, it's grown.
Have a great
10,000
group.
members in a year just tells you these are people that are actively collecting. There's a
Yeah.
lot of vintage pages with 5,000 members, but they really haven't had a lot of growth lately, David. So those people have pretty much gotten the cars they want. So you're seeing with this page is just a live page. And really it's in between. I think like a lot of vintage pages do not want to be friendly to the junk era, but you know what? I'm friendly up until 1993 on this page because I felt like, there's a lot of guys our age, like that middle 30s to like early 50s that we still love the 80s. We still love up to 93. Just because they labeled it junk era doesn't mean we view it as junk. We just basically maybe like certain pieces of the junk era, and there's nobody's going to tell me to not like Bo Jackson cards, and there's no one that's going to tell me not to like Greg Maddox cards, right? They may not be as valuable, but at the end of the day, these are things that I love to collect. So I felt like this page gave us the ability to do it. And if you're not on the page, this is something that you may want to get involved in because you can sell all your duplicates on fire sales. And you know what? I'll give you advice. If you don't know how to price your cards, put it at $1. People will bid your cards for what today's values are. Just do good photos, do good descriptions. As long as you give them transparency, they'll give you fair market value. And you don't have to take a picture of your card 10 different times trying to resell it over and over and over for what you think a comp is that nobody wants to give you.
Right. And for those that aren't on the page, it's the vintage sports cards, wax and packs, rookie cards, estates, fire sales, and auction house page. If you do a search that will come up. You can't miss it. 10,000 plus members. Not too many groups out there with that kind of with that kind of membership. You just hit that not too long ago. So congratulations, Mark, on that accomplishment. And so again, looking forward to doing this again with you and your group, and obviously on my group as well. Guys, if you're not on, join his group. This is some great stuff we're going to be doing down the road. So, Mark, thank you so much for your time. It was fun having drinks.
David, it's my pleasure.
Cards.
Reach out to me,
it was a fun Friday night.
All right, guys. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Thank you, David.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right.